On September 12, 2015, a peaceful evening in Ghaziabad, India, suddenly turned into an unimaginable nightmare. A panicked call from a neighbor sent Arun Mehra, the family's eldest son, racing home with a heavy heart. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to witness. A horrific scene of bloodstains strewn all over the house, a sign of a grisly tragedy that had just occurred. The Mehra family, known as a happy and successful family, suddenly became the victims of a brutal crime. What really happened inside those four walls? Who was behind this tragedy? The answer reveals a terrifying truth about jealousy, hatred, and dark secrets hidden in the seemingly perfect house. Join us as we take a look at this shocking case. The Mehra family was a model of success and happiness in the community of Ghaziabad, Uttar Pradesh. They lived in a spacious house with modern architecture, a symbol of prosperity. Mr. Rakesh Mehra, the father, was a well-known businessman with sharp management skills and a hard-working spirit, which helped him build a thriving import-export company. He was a strict but loving father to his children, always teaching them the value of honesty and hard work. Sunita Mehra, the mother, was known as the soul of the family. She was generous and took care of all the household chores perfectly. Sunita regularly participated in charity activities and was loved by the housewives in the neighborhood for her kindness and warm attitude. She was also the keeper of the hearth, always taking care of each meal and creating a cozy atmosphere in the house. Arun Mehra, the elder son, was an ambitious young man who followed in his father's footsteps in business. He inherited Rakesh's sharpness and his mother's calm demeanor. Having just married Priya, a talented and beautiful girl, Arun seemed to have everything, a bright career and a happy family. Priya quickly won the hearts of the family with her intelligence and tactful manner. However, her presence disturbed some of the family's well-kept relationships. Young Asha, in her 20s, was full of energy and personality and was studying interior design. Spoiled by her parents since childhood, Asha felt loved, but was also sometimes overwhelmed by the attention her sister-in-law, Priya, received. She had deep-set eyes that sometimes reflected unfathomable anxiety and physiological dissatisfaction. Priya's presence made Asha feel abandoned and less important in the eyes of her family. Although this jealousy was often hidden behind a bright smile, it simmered beneath the surface. From the outside, the Mehra family seemed to have it all: money, love, and harmony. They were often seen at public events and were regarded as models of success and well-being. But behind closed doors, small cracks began to appear, tensions quietly building between love and jealousy. Unresolved emotions lay dormant, waiting for an opportunity to explode into an unexpected tragedy. On September 12, 2015, Arun Mehra left his office after a tiring day at work. While he was on his way home, his phone rang with a call from Mr. Sharma, his neighbor. The message was alarming. No one in Arun's house seemed to be responding. Mr. Sharma had tried calling loudly, but there was no response, despite repeated attempts. This unusual situation caught Arun's attention and aroused anxiety. Arun stopped and immediately dialed his mother, but the phone rang for a long time without anyone picking up. He then tried calling his father, and after that, Priya, but the result was the same. The unanimous silence from his loved ones made the atmosphere tense. Arun didn't hesitate any longer. He picked up speed, his eyes on the road ahead as his mind raced with worst-case scenarios. His heart was racing, not from fatigue, but from a pent-up sense of unease. The streets became unfamiliar and time seemed to slow as Arun drove through the familiar roads leading home. The closer he got to the house, the more the strange silence fell, making everything seem heavier and more uncomfortable. When Arun arrived home, he found the front door ajar, unlocked. This was unusual as his parents were very cautious about security, especially in an area where petty theft was common. Feeling tense, he stepped through the door and was met with an eerie silence. The house, usually filled with laughter, was now enveloped in oppressive quiet. The metallic smell in the air signaled something terrible. As Arian entered the living room, he was stunned by a horrific sight. His father, Mr. Rakesh, was lying face down on the floor, his body motionless and covered in blood. The deep, crisscrossing wounds on his body turned the room into a haunting picture. Arian tried to keep calm, but he knew he couldn't stop. He ran upstairs, each step weighed down by fear. When he entered the kitchen, he saw his mother, Mrs. Sunita, collapsed on the floor with deep stab wounds to her chest and abdomen. The floor was covered in blood, and her wide-open eyes seemed to speak of the sudden pain before she collapsed. The horror continued to grip Arian's mind, but one last fear remained. Was his wife Priya safe? With his heart clenched and his legs about to give out, Arian walked into his bedroom. The sight before him made him choke. Priya lay motionless on the bed, surrounded by signs of a violent struggle. Her body was riddled with wounds, and her pale face was covered in blood, creating a tragic scene. The crumpled sheets and tossed furniture testified to Priya's desperate struggle. Arian felt everything around him fade away. He fell to the floor, breathing heavily, his eyes unable to look away from the devastating sight before him. An indescribable despair consumed him. He pulled out his phone, his hand shaking as he dialed the police. His voice was hoarse and unable to hide his horror. The cold reality of the tragedy fell upon him, leaving behind an inconsolable emptiness. When police arrived at the scene, the lights of police cars and flashlights illuminated the gloomy interior of the Mehra house. Authorities quickly cordoned off the area and began a thorough investigation. Initially, with signs of chaos in the house, they suspected that this could be a burglary that turned into a massacre. However, when they checked each room and each drawer, they were surprised to find that all the valuables were still intact. The money and jewelry in the house, including the gold items worn by Sunita and Priya, were untouched. The jewelry boxes were in their original places, with no signs of being opened or tampered with. This detail contradicted the theory of a robbery as the motive. The police realized that the killer was not after property, but driven by a deeper reason. During autopsies, forensic experts discovered that all three victims had been stabbed multiple times, indicating a level of violence far beyond that of a typical attack. Rakesh Mehra suffered 15 stab wounds, concentrated in the chest and abdomen. Sunita, although stabbed 12 times, had wounds suggesting the attack took place while she was trying to defend herself. What is particularly striking is the condition of Priya. She was stabbed 35 times, an alarming number that suggests the murderer was hysterical and vengeful. In addition, bruises on Priya's neck and arms indicate that she was assaulted before she was murdered. Signs of a violent struggle around Priya's bed highlight the panic of her final moments. These details shed light on a chilling reality. The murder was not the result of a random incident, like a burglary or accidental violence, but was motivated by a deep-seated hatred, specifically directed at Priya. This led the police to shift their investigation, focusing on possible relationships and motives within the family and those who knew them. The investigation quickly turned to another analysis. Arun's sister Asha immediately became the focus of the police's attention due to her suspicious absence on the night of the crime. When located at a friend's house, Asha attempted to explain what she had done that evening, but her answers were inconsistent and evasive, which raised the police's suspicions and prompted them to probe further into her possible motives. As the investigation deepened, the police discovered that Asha and her sister-in-law Priya had a rocky relationship. Priya's presence in the family had changed the emotional balance, leaving Asha feeling pushed aside. Priya had gained the affection and attention of her in-laws, something that Asha had previously enjoyed to the fullest. Although the initial disagreements were just minor clashes, over time, jealousy built up in Asha's heart. Arun and Priya's parents' support in preparing to move out further added to Asha's sense of loneliness and abandonment. This support was not only financial but also emotional, offering recognition and family guidance. He made Asha believe that her place in her parents' hearts was gradually being displaced. Police concluded that these factors created a tense picture, suggesting the possibility of deep personal motives on Asha's part. These clues led investigators to pay more attention to Asha's behavior and relationships in the time leading up to the murder, theorizing that jealousy and feelings of abandonment may have turned into uncontrollable actions. A closer examination of Asha's phone revealed a string of suspicious calls that had taken place on the night of the murder. These calls were made to a man named Rajesh, who was later identified as Asha's secret boyfriend. Investigators immediately summoned Rajesh to clarify this connection. During the interrogation, Rajesh initially appeared tense, but tried to maintain a calm demeanor. However, when questioned further by the police and confronted with concrete evidence, he could not deny his role. Rajesh confessed that, in the days leading up to the incident, Asha had expressed her anger and frustration towards Priya. During a heated conversation, Asha had asked him to help teach Priya a lesson, but he refused. According to Rajesh, he thought it was just a family argument where Asha wanted to show her disapproval or put pressure on her sister-in-law. Since the incident, Rajesh had avoided contact with Asha, fearing that he would get into trouble. Although the police did not fully believe Rajesh's words, his statement opened a new line of investigation, confirming that the relationship between Asha and Priya was more than just normal tension. Police began to look more closely at Asha's role, suspecting that her personal grudges and motives may have been the main cause of the horrific tragedy. After hours of intense interrogation, when faced with clear evidence and pressure from the investigators, Asha could no longer maintain her fabricated story. Her eyes wandered and her voice cracked as she began to admit the whole truth. Asha said that feelings of abandonment and jealousy towards Priya had been building up inside her ever since Priya got married. Asha felt that her position in the family had been overshadowed. The attention and love she had received from her parents had suddenly been directed towards her sister-in-law. These feelings turned into an obsession, and she was consumed with the idea of revenge. Asha said she had planned the murder with her secret lover Rajesh. The initial goal was to terrify Priya into leaving the family, but the intense emotions led to more terrible actions. On the night of the murder, Asha waited until everyone in the house was asleep, then opened the door to let Rajesh in. Tension was high as the two moved quietly to Priya's bedroom. They burst into the room, waking Priya with surprise and panic. Priya fought back fiercely, causing the attack to become chaotic. The sounds of the struggle echoed from the bedroom, loud enough to wake Rakesh and Sunita. When Asha's parents rushed to check on them, they stood frozen in shock at the horrific scene. In that moment, a cruel decision was made. There could be no witnesses. The two turned to attack Rakesh and Sunita. Asha described the incident in a trembling voice, her eyes distant, as if trying to escape the haunting memories. The police recorded her confession, stunned by the unexpected brutality. Jealousy, abandonment, and simmering emotions led to a tragedy no one could have predicted. After receiving a detailed confession from Asha, the police continued to summon Rajesh for further questioning and clarification of his role in the case. Faced with new evidence and Asha's testimony, Rajesh realized there was no way to deny it. The calmness he had tried to maintain from the beginning gradually disappeared, replaced by a tense expression and a gradual admission in his eyes. During a lengthy interrogation, Rajesh admitted his involvement and elaborated on what happened that fateful night. He confessed that it was Asha who had contacted him, outlining a plan to eliminate Priya. According to Rajesh, the original intention was just to intimidate and pressure Priya to leave the family, but anger and chaos pushed things out of control. Rajesh finally bowed his head and confessed to the murder with a resigned look on his face. His testimony matched Asha's description, cementing the case and bringing to a close the chain of horrific events that claimed 3 lives in the Mehra family. the Mehra family massacre became one of the most shocking events in Ghaziabad's legal history and was closely followed across India. The trial, which took place in 2016, attracted a great deal of public and media attention. It raised profound questions about the dynamics of family relationships and how negative emotions can lead to unimaginable tragedy. In court, both Asha and Rajesh faced justice. The trial was held at the Uttar Pradesh High Court, with lawyers representing both the accused and the prosecution on behalf of the victim's family. The trial lasted for weeks, with evidence presented, witness statements recorded, and psychological analyses of the accused conducted. Prosecutors presented a full account of the events leading up to the crime, using evidence from Asha's phone, Rajesh's confession, and autopsy details. They highlighted the brutality of the crime, particularly the number of stab wounds the victim suffered, suggesting a level of hatred that was not a spontaneous act. Crime scene footage and forensic evidence were also presented, reinforcing the brutal nature of the crime. Asha's lawyer argued that jealousy and a long-term feeling of abandonment had put her under severe psychological pressure, pushing her to act rashly. However, the prosecutor stressed that the planning and execution of the murder demonstrated premeditated criminal intent, dismissing any argument about a sudden outburst of emotion. Under the Indian Penal Code, murder is punishable by death or life imprisonment depending on the severity and circumstances of the case. The court concluded that Rajesh, having played a direct role in the murders, was ultimately responsible. He was therefore sentenced to death, in keeping with the spirit of Section 302, considering the heinous nature of the crime. As for Asha, although she did not directly commit all the murders, she participated in planning and abetting the crime. The court sentenced her to life imprisonment in accordance with the provisions of Indian law regarding accomplices in murder cases. The court's verdict was met with public approval, although some expressed their sorrow at the jealousy and negative emotions that led to this tragedy. The trial not only marked the end of a horrific case, but also shed light on the dark corners of family relationships and the terrifying consequences when feelings are distorted by jealousy and hatred. Aryan, the sole survivor who witnessed the destruction of his family, could no longer bear to live in Ghaziabad, where every corner and room reminded him of memories and loss. After the trial and the verdict, Aryan decided to leave the city. The pain of losing his parents, his beloved wife, and his sister left an unhealable wound in his heart. Moving to another city was not only an act of seeking peace, but also an attempt to escape from the horrific memories, the pity of those around him, and the pressure from the shadow of the tragedy. In his new home, Aryan tried to rebuild his life from scratch, though the pain lingered like a scar that never heals. The Mehra family case has become a tragic symbol, a powerful reminder of the terrible consequences when jealousy and hatred overwhelm family love. It is a clear demonstration of how negative emotions can build up and explode into irreversible actions, with painful consequences not only for the perpetrators, but also for other innocent people. After following the entire details of this case, what do you think caused a seemingly happy family, like the Mehra family, to fall into such a cruel tragedy? Was it because Asha's parents spoiled her too much, leading to such a tragedy? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Thank you all for following the Mehra family case on our channel. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to watch our next intriguing cases.